Coming up, we're connecting you with the creativity and culture in your community, including a businessman turned artist who finds his inspiration in nature.
You can see the natural beauty of this piece of wood.
What happens when a comic book character steps off the page into the real world?
He needs a break. His life is boring, so he climbs out of the comic and ends up right in the boy's backpack.
And we'll visit an iconic Berkshire's eatery with a new lease on life.
It's a gathering place. I chose the town of Adams to move to, and part of the reason was this diner car.
Join us for those stories and more as we explore the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. Up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Welcome and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point, your source for creativity, culture, and community. I'm Saivalis Bauer. Each week this summer, we're exploring all that Western New England has to offer, and today we're coming to you from Northampton, Massachusetts, in the heart of Hampshire County. Home to Smith College, this community known as the Paradise City has a rich history, and some of its most famous residents have included Sojourner Truth and President Calvin Coolidge. With a robust live music scene, world-class restaurants, shopping, and art galleries, Northampton has a little something for just about everyone. And speaking of art, our first story today is about a man who was called to be an artist after a storied career in real estate. Businessman and philanthropist Harold Grinspoon has always had a love of nature, especially trees in all forms, being taken with the bend and reach of fallen branches, logs, and charred tree stumps. But it was a downed cherry tree in his own backyard that stirred him to what he calls a personal awakening and a late-in-life vocation as a sculptor. Producer Dave Frazier brings us his story.
You can see the natural beauty of this piece of wood.
Well known for his work as a philanthropist, Harold Grinspoon became an artist less than 10 years ago, working mostly with reclaimed wood from downed trees and branches from all over the country. Today, in his 90s, Grinspoon, who suffered from throat and tongue cancer in the early 1980s, is having the time of his life, watching his ideas blossom into reality.
It's very joyful. It's very refreshing. You always want to keep your mind sharp and going, if possible. And sometimes your body gets to age a little bit. But if you are blessed to have a mind and work with it.
His sculptures have risen out of a life of creative ventures in both business and establishing the Harold Grinspoon Foundation, which provides literacy and heritage for Jewish children. People close to Grinspoon say he is always thinking about the next impactful item or sculpture he can create.
His creative mind is always thinking, so he'll browse antique shops, he browses through Brimfield Fair, and certain items catch his eye. Oh, this can be a top, this can be a point of interest, this could be a great base, and he buys them up and brings them to the shop. And he mentioned today he had 12 new ones in his mind, and that's exciting, and it shocks me. Sometimes he's way ahead of me, and I don't even know they're not on paper yet.
A lifelong nature lover, Grinspoon began retrieving unique specimens of wood while on hikes that he took all around the world. But it was at his home in Longmeadow that his inspiration for tree sculptures was born.
Yeah, I think 7 or 8 years ago, the cherry tree that fell down in my backyard, a big, massive, high cherry tree, and it was curved. So we cut that up and quartered it, and it came out to be very nice. And then we just kept on rolling, and now we're doing lots of other things besides wood.
Recently, he has moved into working with stainless steel spheres and rods, glass globes, and other found objects. Even old bicycles have made their way into one of his works.
Simple concept. Wow, bicycles on a 20-foot pole, just scattered all over the place. It's beautiful.
Grinspoon's towering sculptures are the result of intensely collaborative efforts that marry his vision, reflected in his preliminary sketches, with the logistics of sourcing, transporting, transforming, and preserving fallen trees. He established an indoor-outdoor studio space at an Agawam corporate property where his charitable foundations are based. The trees are allowed to dry for as long as 8 months.
Probably takes over a year's time from the concept to the finished product, because you're going through several pieces at one time. As you go through them, you're changing your concept, you're changing your idea. You're always moving the idea around.
Although its creation came late in life, Grinspoon's art has been percolating over many years. I've spent a lifetime evolving as a person, he says, attempting to grow and expand my thinking and capacity for caring and generosity and being present in the moment. Art has ultimately been the gift that unlocked more understanding than I could have imagined.
When you're out in nature, you physically work out. It's these endorphins, I guess that's the right word, endorphins, they take over. And if you're a cranky, mean old guy, you become a smiley, wonderful human being.
He's the mixture of, aging out and yet being vibrant. He's fighting against time, and he wants to make the most of every single moment and day that he has, and it's a great way to live.
And you can learn more about how the team at Harold Grinspoon Sculptures create unique pieces of art that are visible throughout the Pioneer Valley in parks, town greens, and college campuses in a digital extra.
So we visit the property together, and it's making the connection with what they're about and what his sculpture is about. Sometimes the sculpture matches better than the name of the sculpture.
You can find that digital extra and so much more online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Award-winning author and illustrator Diane deGroat has worked on over 150 books, and she can now add one more to her list. Her latest is entitled The Adventures of Robo-Kid, and it takes readers on an inspiring journey of what it takes to be a hero by telling the story of a child living in the real world who encounters a comic book character. The book touches on topics such as anxiety and explores the courage that it takes to cope with those emotions. I spoke with deGroat to learn more.
I thought I knew so much about books and had read so many other authors' books to illustrate their stories. I thought, well, how hard could it be? Well, I found out it was hard, and I found out I was not a very good writer. So I did all the right things. I took classes, I practiced, I joined a critique group, but most of all, I started reading and reading good books. And that's how you learn about good writing, is reading good books. So I really worked at it to become a writer, and it wasn't easy. Illustration was really easy, but writing, and it's still hard. It's not natural for me, so I have to work at it. Yeah.
So this book takes us on an inspiring journey where a real boy, his life is intersected by a comic book hero. So tell me more about the book and some of the adventures we will go on within it.
Well, it starts out with Henry is the boy, and he has some self-esteem issues and is afraid. In this case, without giving a lot away, it's about swimming in the deep water. And he's afraid, and also at the same time, the comic book character, we see at the bottom of the book what his life is, and he needs a break. His life is boring, so he climbs out of the comic and ends up right in the boy's backpack, and comes just at the right time so that Henry feels that if he's with him, he could do anything. So it's a matter of, I think, having the right attitude and feeling you could do something with a little encouragement if you didn't have that before. So I think it's positive thinking. That would be the lesson in the book, yes.
So you've mentioned that when you're illustrating a book, you are always learning something new. And being that this style of book was new, it was a different kind of creation for you. What did you learn about yourself through this experience?
Well, it was a totally different medium. If I hold up the book, you can see the boy's part is a very soft pencil drawing. And the comic book part is a line drawing, looks like an ink drawing, but really it's not pencil, it's charcoal. And it's not a line drawing, it's digital art in the computer. So I've been using Photoshop for quite a few years to incorporate it into even my Gilbert books. You can't tell, but there is digital art in there. And also the Charlie the Wrench Dog books. There's some digital art, but you can't see it. So, but I love using Photoshop, and I love charcoal as a drawing medium. I do a lot of figure drawing and I just love it. So I combined the two things and I figured out, well, this is very different because everyone's telling me I have to come up with a fresh style. And I was really getting tired of watercolor. So, hey, why don't I try this? So I was able to combine the charcoal drawings, scan them in, put them in the computer, and then color it in with digital color and combining the two. And there you have it.
So speaking of all this drawing and the digital and the combining, it brings me to one of the most frequently asked questions that children always ask you, which is, where do you get your ideas? And for me, as somebody who's not an artist, I always love to ask the question, like, how do you conceptualize these drawings? Where do they come from? What's your process like?
Well, to get the drawings, I first have to get the story, of course. And it is very strange because I wear two different hats. When I'm writing, I wear an author's cap. And when I'm illustrating, I wear an artist's cap, like I was drawing for somebody else's book. But in this case, it's for mine. In this case, I had to actually do both at the same time because the visual was such an important part of the writing. So I would just make rough sketches as I'm writing it. And the text is really just dialogue. So really, the illustration was much more important than the writing of the story. But once I had the idea and the story, then I could handle it visually.
So you've been very open, even in this interview, about dealing with some challenges, dealing with rejection, trying to get better at certain crafts. So how were you able to handle any of that negative feedback, and what advice do you have for others when it comes to courage, perseverance, and not giving up?
Good question. Up until recently, I didn't have any negative feedback. I've always been working continuously for all those years, and it was only after I invested about the last 20 years into the Gilbert and the Charlie books that and then when I finished, I realized I was out of the loop. It was much, much harder, and the field had changed. So it was with perseverance and finally getting an agent also for the first time that really helped me. It's not easy. And for someone even to break into the field now, it really takes perseverance. And I think being knowledgeable with social media is absolutely vital, even if us old folks, we say we just don't want to deal with that. You know, we just felt that if your work was good, it would get published, but that's not the case anymore. You really have to do research, you have to promote yourself, and you have to reach out to your audience instead of just sitting there and waiting for them to come to you. Really important.
Every week, Connecting Point explores the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England, but it doesn't stop there. You can find us online anytime for exclusive features and content. With over 45 years of experience as a professional illustrator, Diane deGroat has mastered many ways to create her illustrations, whether it be old-fashioned pencil on paper or using more advanced computer software. In this week's digital exclusive, deGroat offers us an in-depth look into all of the different tools and methods she uses to create her art.
And this way I have the head, he's about this big, and I could photograph him at all different angles. And I use those photographs to copy the illustrations when I'm drawing Henry in charcoal.
You can find that digital exclusive online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Comfort food, fast service, and reasonable prices seems like a pretty good recipe for success, right? Add a great location to that mix and the sky is the limit. That was the vision local entrepreneur Pete Oleskiewicz had when he purchased the shuttered Miss Adams Diner in the northern Berkshire County town of Adams back in August of 2020. And since opening the doors for business in December of 2021, he's been seeing his plan come to fruition. Connecting Point's Brian Sullivan paid a visit to this iconic eatery that's got a new lease on life.
It may not seem too long ago that the parking spaces on Main Street in Adams were a dime a dozen. Lately, though, the sidewalks are singing a different tune and the spaces aren't so easy to come by. So why the uptick in activity? Well, believe it or not, it may have a lot to do with the reopening of a once dormant landmark lunch counter.
Our downtown is built for places like this. We were kind of a restaurant desert for a little while. The diner has infused some more life into our downtown, and you're starting to see some of that pop up around the diner to support it. But this is so important to our community to have this particular diner car reopen.
It's a sentiment that's echoed by the sounds of forks on plates, orders coming through the kitchen, and the steady hum of chatter emanating from the booths and countertop seats. It was in August of 2020 that local restaurateur Pete Oleskiewicz finalized the purchase of the Miss Adams Diner. But as he would quickly learn, that was just the first leg in the long journey to returning this once great eatery to prominence here in town.
Before I had bought it, the building was closed for 4.5 years. And I ended up buying the building, and after being shuttered for that amount of time, it needed some work. It needed updated wiring and some plumbing and equipment, roof work. So it was quite an adventure getting the place ready to go, but it took 15 months from the time I purchased the building until we opened. So another big factor of that was trying to get staff. But luckily, right 3 weeks before Christmas, I found a crew that I had put together, and we've been here since.
This diner car is a Worcester model from 1949, and much of its history can be seen hanging on the walls, whether it's a funny sign or a black and white photo from the day that the diner made it here. But more often than not, it's all about the food, even for those customers who were a part of its history.
I don't know too much about the diner itself other than it's got good food. I came here as a young adult back in the 70s, and my wife and I, we don't go for big restaurants. We like the hole-in-the-wall diners.
From coast to coast, diners have been a major thread in the American tapestry for over a century. And for many of us, part of the American childhood experience, along with learning to ride a bicycle and throw a baseball, was coming to a diner like this one with our families. In this case, it's a mom taking her boys out for a special treat lunch at the counter. Or here, 3 generations all at one table enjoying the outdoor eating experience. Others took it a step further and decided that if they were going to be together forever, they might as well make it official right here.
We were sitting at the counter one day discussing possible wedding venues, and my boss said, well, why don't you guys just get married here? So she put out invites, we gave them to people that I knew that worked here, and just some of my regular customers. Some of my family actually came from out of state, and we ended up getting married in the back patio.
Since the inception of the diner in 1872 as a mobile food wagon for the overnight workers in Providence, Rhode Island, everything about the diner experience is uniquely American. From the coffee to the food, right down to the working class folks who tend to be the most regular customers. The Miss Adams Diner checks all of those boxes.
It's a gathering place. I chose the town of Adams to move to in 2006, and part of the reason was this diner car. It was close to my house, it was in walking distance, and I saw it as a place where I could kind of get a cup of coffee and meet with neighbors and friends and just enjoy life here.
Between running the diner during the day, his other restaurant the next town over at night, and serving on the North Adams City Council, the first priority for Pete Oleskiewicz should be getting a good night's sleep. But his main focus is keeping his regulars happy and hopefully making new regulars in the process.
I'm hoping they come in and they enjoy their meal. They have something good to say. They found that it was a positive experience. The price was right, the taste was there, and when they leave here, they talk to their friends, and we can just continue on building more friends and more relationships with people just to keep coming in.
And for more about the Miss Adams Diner, log onto our webpage as owner Pete Oleskiewicz discusses the make, model number, and history of the classic diner car that's now his restaurant in this digital extra.
This one was placed in its current position it's now in 1949. There was an existing structure before that was destroyed by fire, but this one's been in place here for almost 75 years.
You can find that digital extra as well as all of the stories you've seen in this episode online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. After helping her young daughter build on her public speaking skills, Ayanna Crawford realized that learning this skill set may be something that other young girls needed as well. Soon after, Crawford founded the Take the Mic program, which offers sessions for children to build their confidence and self-esteem by learning the art of public speaking. Now, in its 8th year of programming, Crawford joins me to share more about the program and its impact.
When girls have confidence in what they are saying, when girls have a message to say that they're passionate about, that builds their self-esteem, that makes them feel that, not only what they're saying, that they believe in it, but they convey it to whomever they're speaking to. And so in anything that anyone does, if you're passionate about something and you understand the idiosyncrasies of what you're saying, and you yourself are very commanding of that message, then it comes across that way. Because I think there's an art to public speaking, there's an art to conversations, and there's an art to listening, because I think we often don't do enough of that, right? We don't listen enough. And so if we listen more, then we'll be able to share a message of hope to others because of what we hear from them.
And Take the Mic has after school sessions as well as summer sessions. And you describe it as a fun and interactive environment. So can you walk us through what a session looks like, and how are you able to really encourage these young adults and students to open up and be themselves during these programs?
In the beginning, it's sort of a little tricky, but we get them engaged. So what we do is we allow them to do icebreakers. We know that icebreakers are a way to let your hair down a bit, get engaged, and get really sort of active. And once we do that, then we sort of start off with our initial class, which is our introductory to public speaking. We do a PowerPoint presentation. We have the girls do interactive activities, role playing, and also we give them some additional activities to do to showcase their public speaking. We might have them read a poem. We might have them read a tongue twister. We might have them read a short essay, something to engage them and get them excited. And then also within the program, we have a creative writing class. We have a computer class. We have a nutrition class that we do with the girls. We also have what to wear, what not to wear, health and beauty, because we believe that all those components with your presentation and what you're saying also conveys a message too, and how you take care of yourself is also going to exude some of that positivity and that understanding in terms of your presentation. And so we also have guest speakers that come each of the days that we're scheduled. So we have professional women speakers that come and share not only their careers, but also how public speaking has impacted their lives and their careers. And so it's a wonderful thing to hear from other women and other perspectives and how public speaking has come about for themselves. And then we have a ceremony at the end where each girl will be able to present a topic of their choice on community service project, and they present it to their peers. And we all get to listen to the skills and their presentation at the end.
I can only imagine how powerful that presentation at the end must be, seeing the transition and the transformation of these children. What has been maybe one moment from an individual or a group that you've worked with that has really stuck with you in a moment of transformation that you've seen?
It goes back to my first initial program. And my first initial program was what we called a seminar. It was a one-day Take the Mic seminar. We had about 45 girls. There was 2 girls that weren't sure if they wanted to come. They were very, very shy, even in their peer groups with their friends. They didn't really talk at all, nothing. And after our program, the parent and the friend said, "Oh my goodness, my friend is talking. She loved your program. It was almost as if you cured her from being shy. She loved it." And so from that day on, she gradually gained more confidence in her own public speaking. She became a better speaker with her friends and her school and her parents. And for that reason alone, I knew that I needed to continue to do that. And that was in 2014.
And so now, 8 years later, here we are still talking about this program. How would you like to see it grow? And what is the future of Take the Mic?
I think that we need to have a public speaking course in our schools. I believe that public speaking should be started at a very young age, whether it be first grade, second grade, but embedded in the curriculum. I believe every child in every school around the country should have and offer a public speaking course. And I would love for Take the Mic to be in every school and every district around the country. The skills that they gain as a public speaker is going to be so beneficial for them in the future.
And that does it for this edition of Connecting Point. Remember, you can always find all of the stories that you saw in this episode, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and so much more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. Our thanks to the City of Northampton for hosting us today. And please be sure to join us again every week right here for more stories of the creativity, culture, and community that make us Western New England. I'm Sidalis Bauer. Thanks for watching and take care.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers,